Hey guys, I'm back. Sorry it's been a while. Needed to take a little break and focus on certain things, but I'm here today to talk about James Mangold's The Wolverine from 2013, starring Hugh Jackman as the titular character amongst other people, taking place mostly in Japan, where he's confronted by a situation from his past, and in the process is able to overcome the guilt he feels over losing Jean Grey. This came out in the summer of 2013, right before I started doing movie reviews on here. Just missed it. And then as X-Men Days of Future Past came out, I started to educate myself on the movies, and in comparison to what came after with Logan, this is obviously not on the same level, but in a lot of ways I think it's very underrated, and this I think is a very modest and restrained look at a comic book character. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm going along with the current or anything, but watching this last night actually made me appreciate just how much this feels like a real movie, in the sense that it's really a character study of how Logan is struggling to find a way to live again, haunted by everything that happened in X-Men 3 and wondering if he actually has a purpose, thinking that everything that he touches ends up either dead or ruined. I gotta admit, I am becoming somewhat of a big fan of James Mangold, especially after seeing Dial of Destiny earlier this year. He's got a very unique style that most filmmakers don't really have now. He's very much an old school type of director, where it feels like you're watching an actual movie from the 1970s or 80s or something. I think he has an affinity for that kind of aesthetic and feel. Now, whether or not there's a whole lot of CGI in these action scenes, with the climactic battle in the third act, I think that's pretty obvious, but even so, that doesn't really take me out of the movie, or specifically the bullet train sequence where he's using his claws to crawl on the roof of the train while trying to dodge the track signals that are coming right at them. Even if it is somehow CGI, it's all in camera and you can tell exactly what's going on. This film does not shy away from the brutality, although in comparison to Logan, it's a lot more tame. But the opening scene where we're in Nagasaki and the bomb's about to be dropped, Logan manages to save this officer Yoshida. Seeing Wolverine deformed the way he does until he eventually heals back up, even now, I'm still legitimately terrified by that image. And this, of course, leads to Yoshida obsessing over wanting Logan's abilities. Even though it is tame in comparison, there's no shying away from the blood in this one. When Logan gets shot or stabbed by some other thugs, he finds himself struggling from healing since that one villain, the Viper, manages to suppress his powers, giving him a struggle and feeling like there's something at risk. Really at the heart of this movie is Logan trying to find a way to live again, still haunted by what happened with Jean Grey, seeing her in his dreams, and then eventually meeting this woman named Mariko, who's the daughter of this wealthy businessman in Tokyo, and she's able to help him overcome the ghosts of his past. He doesn't fall in love with her necessarily. To be honest, I kind of like that because I don't think it really would have fit with the tone that was set up with Hugh Jackman's portrayal. He doesn't really seem like the kind of guy who would settle down. He's a wanderer, let alone a soldier. But she plays a key factor in his overall arc when he manages to accept what happened in the past, knowing that he had to kill Jean since she was hurting people. Even though he has to leave Mariko behind, he manages to find a way to live again. And even before he hooks up with her, he has a reunion with her grandfather, who was the soldier that Logan saved all those years ago. He brings up the question of, hey, maybe you could give me your eternity. That way you can actually have a normal life. Because even though you can live eternally, a man can run out of things to live for. I guess in Logan's mind, that probably wouldn't be unappealing because everyone that you know or care for will eventually die off if you're able to live forever. But they're not going to be around. And even when you make friends along the way, they're eventually going to pass on too. So really, where's the fun in being able to live forever? Yeah, you'll never die and you'll be able to heal and all that stuff, but with no end in sight, it can actually seem kind of, in its own way, very depressing. It's almost obligatory to say this by now, but Hugh Jackman's portrayal as the character, he is really great, and his passion for the character is very clear in every scene that he's in.
Don't hit my friends.
What kind of monster are you?
The Wolverine.
From his connection with Mariko, his sibling-like bond with Yukio, who actually proves to be a very useful side character, and she has the ability to see certain possible scenarios that will happen in the future. I was actually surprised to realize that she was called Yukio. I thought, wait, is this the same character from Deadpool 2? And actually she is the same character, although a different version. And just a personal taste for me, Yukio is fine in the Deadpool movies, but I prefer this interpretation, to be honest with you. A lot more serious. Just me, though. I also really like how respectful this movie is of the Japanese culture. I'm not someone who's very familiar with Asian culture, nor am I very well versed in its history or anything. I know just a little bit about it, but in the hands of someone like James Mangold, who is from the United States, how he's able to portray this culture very respectfully, on my end, is a very remarkable achievement. So it's revealed that the guy operating the armor at the climax of the movie is Yoshida himself. Yoshida wants to use that in order to have the same abilities that Wolverine has. But as you'd expect in a villain's hubris, it ends up coming back to bite them. And what I really liked is that his granddaughter doesn't hesitate to kill him when she says, no, I buried my grandfather. You're not him. Good of her to recognize that her own blood has become a monster. Oh my god, I just realized that her father is Hiroyuki Sanada, this guy from Avengers Endgame that Hawkeye kills. Watching the movie, I thought, is that who I think it is? And then when I looked it up, I thought, oh, yeah, it is. As for any problems I have, the final battle is a little too hokey in comparison to what the tone was for the first 2 acts. But this is a comic book movie down at its core, so in some ways, you gotta accept it for what it is. It didn't ruin the movie for me, but the tonal shift was somewhat jarring for me. And the Viper character, completely weak and useless. She obviously has a purpose to help Yoshida with what he's trying to achieve, but we don't really get anything else. Boring character. But I also do like how Wolverine manages to use his samurai sword with both hands in a way that's honorable, as Yoshida taught him earlier in the movie. Using the 2 hands, it helps him power up the samurai sword, which is crucial in his fight against Yoshida. But due to his adamantium claws being destroyed, he now has the bone claws. They're still claws at least, so he has something to fight his enemies with, but still, adamantium's way better. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. I also really like how it ends with him and Yukio about to take off, and she asks him where do you want to go? And he says, well, right now let's just go up, and then we'll see. Kind of reminds me of Thor at the end of Avengers Endgame when he says, I don't really have a path. For the first time in my life, I don't know where to go. But it goes to show you that he's kind of open to whatever life throws his way. He's got a clean slate now. And then we get a mid-credits scene where he returns to the United States and he's confronted by Magneto at the airport along with Charles Xavier, who somehow is still alive after the events of X-Men 3. Seeing on the TV that these Sentinels are being created by Trask Industries. And this whole scene is a big setup for Days of Future Past, which I would imagine back in 2013 was a really, really big deal for X-Men fans. Okay, sorry about that. My iPhone just randomly crashed on me and I had to restart everything. I don't know what happened there, but if you notice a slight change in the camera angle, that's what happened. Anyway, in conclusion, the Wolverine is not one of my favorites in the X-Men franchise. It's a very modest look at the character of Logan, and if you're a fan of the character, this is going to be the movie for you. I much prefer what they do with the following sequel, or the Wolverine sequel, Logan. This one I would say is a fairly good time. And if you're someone who's looking for a breath of fresh air in the landscape of the comic book movie genre, this might actually be what you're looking for. It was a stepping stone towards Days of Future Past and Logan, so I think it definitely accounts for something. Those are my thoughts on the Wolverine. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment below and tell me what your thoughts are on this movie. And as always, see you in the next one.